Hello and welcome to the Quackcast. This is the Drunkduck Quackcast with me, Ozone Ocean, and my marvellous friends, Tant Serene and Bane.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hello! Hello, we're on the Quackcast, and today, this week, we're talking about multiverses, parallel universes, extra dimensions, all that kind of stuff. It's an idea that's so popular in fiction, especially now with the success of the, what do they call it, the MCU? The Marvel something, what does that stand for?
Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, there you go, Baines. Genius. Thank you very much for that. So the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where basically they use the multiverse as a literary tool, basically. So it's not based on the theories in quantum physics, of course. It's pretty much magic. And I say that because you don't need to follow logic to create these universes. You just say, yeah, it's part of the multiverse, so we can include it. And that's the logic behind it. It's fine. It's multiverse. It exists in
something cool. Like what would we love to see? Like anything you can imagine.
Exactly.
Which is very fun, but also very perilous. We can talk about that.
Yes.
But and it allows them to join in. See, initially what they do in the Marvel Universe was basically just to go, okay, so we've got a story about Thor. Oh, we've got a story about Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow. Yeah, we've got and because it's a multiverse, we can join all these stories together. Yay! But now with the multiple universes, now they can include the different version of Captain Marvel and all those different versions. So that and it's like the what was the Mouth of Madness with Doctor Strange. So we've got different versions of Doctor Strange and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But now I'm going to introduce the music. Oh no, I'm not going to introduce the music. I'm going to introduce the featured comic by Quackcast. She featured a comic called Psychoborg. So, Quai,
Yay!
tell us about Psychoborg.
Hello, this is Quackcast, and the feature I've selected for this week is Psychoborg by MKS Monsters, and it is rated M for mature. Honorable Champion Astra, daughter of Luno, has suffered a terrible and traumatic loss of a loved one in her youth, and now serves a duty to protect the innocent and serve the Empire. Flash forward years into the future, the scene opens with Astra fighting against Psychoborg over the fate of the reactor, which Astra defends for the hospitals and towns that depend on it. Champions of the Loomis Empire versus champions of the Ominous Kingdom, a battleground where the 9 types of magic, dark, blood, metal, air, wood, fire, water, earth, and light collide. Digital line work, digital paint. Catch a behind-the-scenes glimpse of Astra preparing to become an Imperial bride, and read Psychoborg by MKS Monsters, rated M.
And that was the featured comic, which was Psychoborg. Thank you very much for talking about that, Quackcast. You're an amazing person. So freaking cool. We've got to have her on the Quackcast again one of these days.
Yes.
Sure she'd be
for sure.
Happy.
Just don't get the evil version this time.
Yeah.
From the dark.
We would not know how to put her back,
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you let her out, there's no going back. She's a Pandora of a person. She's just. All right. So we have the featured music also coming up. This is a theme that Gummal's created, as he does every week. Thank you very much for that, Gummal's. So Gummal's theme this week is to a comic called The New Butler, which was a comic that was featured last year. Portentous, epic, intriguing, glorious, and really quite regal. This one proudly proclaims wealth and taste, a very rare combination in these crass days. It speaks of wide open rolling green grassed grounds and forests surrounding the lordly manor, packed with partridge and pheasant for hunting. So take it away, Gumulus, with your theme to The New Butler. That was Gumwallis's theme to The New Butler, which, oh yes, I'm so glad that was featured. I wish I could feature it again, but alas, it is not to be. That was a comic by Tensor One, and rated T for teen, so have a look at that.
Yeah.
Tensor One. Such a cool name. Very anime sounding. Tensor. Sounds like Akira. Do you know, speaking of Akira, like, you guys have seen Akira, have you?
No.
Yeah,
Well, Akira is...
I think so.
Like, anytime you hear of Akira, you see that amazing poster of that guy on that motorbike, and you think, oh, that guy, he's Akira. Akira is so cool. And he's not Akira. Akira's like some crazy dude who, you know, becomes, like, psychically active and turns into this big thing. You know what that guy's actually called? Canada.
What?
He's
Oh,
Really?
Yeah. Or
sweet.
Canada or something, but yeah, because he loves Canada and he wears red all the time and has a Canadian flag and stuff. So he's your guy, mate.
Yeah. Awesome. It's just like Frankenstein is not the monster, and the Big Lebowski is not the dude.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. But in parallel universes, maybe they are.
Maybe they are.
Speaking of parallel universes and mistakes that people make, that ties into the idea of, what is this, Mandela theory?
Mm-hmm.
Mandela. It's where people, like, they all together, they make a group mistake, you know, like a group hallucination, that kind of thing. It's because something is so wrong that you automatically think that it's something else. And people have made this up in their mind thinking, oh, this is like evidence of parallel universes. Like, we've done a slip. We're in the wrong universe. Mandela didn't really die in the 80s like we thought. Oh, my God. It wasn't the Berenstein Bears. It's the Berenstain Bears. You know, like...
Right.
But it's nothing to do with that. It's just that these things are obvious, like, mistakes that people just tend to all make. Like, because we make them for the same reasons. Because we're all humans and we think the same way. That's really what the more logical explanation for it. You know, we're human and we make the same errors because we think the same way, rather than, us slipping into a new universe. I mean, come up with a
No,
more
I
logical
think it's
explanation.
I think it's hard evidence.
The glitch in the Matrix. Oh,
Yeah,
jeez.
man.
Which
Which
is
are fascinating
no.
stories on a story level. I mean, those glitch in the matrix stories that people experience. I mean, some are just like, well, yeah, you forgot or you had a little moment, but I mean, of course, the interesting ones have multiple witnesses, and it's very like it's intriguing, like whether it's something the brain is doing or memory is doing or
yeah.
whatever.
Well, I mean, like I say, we all make mistakes for the same reason. So that's why things can have multiple. Like when people see aliens, like a UFO, and you have multiple witnesses, it's because we all make the same mistakes. If one person makes mistakes, well, what's the odds that the other person made exactly the same mistake? Because it's hard to gauge distance at night, and we interpret things according to what we know from pop culture, and we've all seen like Star Trek, and we've all seen this and that, and so we all, anyway, so that's sort of
Wait, so we
takes
would
us
all imagine a flying saucer because we all make the same mistake?
yeah, that's how it works.
What?
Yeah,
But I saw Godzilla, or I didn't see anything. Like, why would we make that same mistake? Like, in a way, I see your point because there are reasons why people imagine ghosts. I'm not saying they're not real. I'm not saying they are real. But there's a reason that people imagine it.
yeah,
It's because we ascribe our human understanding. We put a face in the clouds. Like
yeah.
we create these images. We know this as artists and cartoonists and stuff like that. Like the human eye, like will create a face in their perception very easily with very little prompting, because that's our experience of the world. We look to identify faces and stuff.
Yeah,
so on that level, yeah.
But yeah, like
anyway, I don't understand what you're saying about we would all make the mistake of seeing a UFO. Strangers would make that mistake.
Yeah, like so we on the current like shared cultural level. So that's the thing. So if you had 10 people in a field, they're all going to tend to make a similar kind of evaluation of what they're seeing because they'll most likely have shared cultural references, and their eyes will all
together.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. And their eyes will have seen the thing in the same way, so they'll tend to make the same kind of interpretation of what they're seeing, even if it's completely wrong. Just because their eyes are all looking, like the physics of those photons hitting their eyes are all hitting them in the same way. That kind of thing. And so it's like when you watch a magic show. Like, it's not like 5 people see that it's, these people over there see in a different way to those people over there see in a different way. We're all convinced that the lady's being sawn in half because that's what we can see from that angle, even though that's not what's happening.
I think it's probably a trick. I think that lady's fine.
But anyway,
I don't mean to be a contrarian, but yes, I see you. I'm just trying to be silly. Yeah. Yeah.
But like a person from a different culture or a person from like 100 years in the past wouldn't see that as an alien. They would see that as something else because their cultural references would be different. Maybe they'd still interpret it as something supernatural, but in a different way. So that person would see, like, I don't know, an angel floating in the sky. So it depends on your, your shared cultural references. But all right, let's go back to multiple universes.
Well, yeah, what was that? What happened? We slipped into an alternate.
We did.
Universe.
All right, so with multiple universes, we talked about this in our little video, Patreon video, and we really introduced it. So the Marvel universe, that's a big thing now. Everybody's seen the Marvel universes, but there's so many different multiple universe things that have been on TV. Like a big famous one was Sliders in the 90s. That was so cool. That's where, like, there was a bunch of people. I can't remember all the actors, but one of them was the guy from Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think, or
Yeah, Sala.
yeah, the Indiana Jones films. Yeah, the bearded guy. So he was a big professor fellow, and they made a device where you could make a wormhole, and you could walk through it into a different, multiple universe. So you're going into a different version of your reality in the same time that you came from. So they're all like time is going along in exactly the same rate in all these universes, and you're only switching to a new universe. You're not switching, place or time. You're switching to exactly the same place, same time that you left in a different universe. So that's how it worked, and it meant like in a story way, it meant that you could create whole new adventures for these characters to have. So they would go into this new universe where, I don't know, like people lisp, or like people still go around on horse and carriage or something like that, or there's a fascist government and they have to solve this issue or whatever it is in order to jump to their different universe. So that was a pretty interesting one. What was another one?
That's what an ingenious premise for a show. Like, I love it. A way to do sci-fi, but on a budget.
Yeah, because it means you don't have to
because you
create...
can be on a regular... Yeah.
Go on. Sorry, I don't mean to step on you.
No, it's all good. Some special effects, like with the time portals and stuff like that, when they're sliding through, they needed that. But, they didn't need to be on a starship or an alien planet. They're on Earth. But people behave differently. So it's kind of like a little bit of Star Trek, a little bit of Twilight Zone, I think the series kind of fell apart because of what we can talk about later is you kind of have an infinite canvas in a way with bringing in this multiverse idea. But it can be very dangerous. And I would cite modern Marvel as this. I haven't seen Loki. I've heard good things about it. But I think they have run into or are about to run into big trouble. I think they've already run into big trouble with using this multiverse thing without having a plan, without having... I mean, a cool story that uses a multiverse thing can be great. But to use the multiverse as a crutch can be hit and miss, or it can be a disaster, for stakes and for audience investment and stuff like that.
I think, and that's a great point. Generally, as I've said, I'm not really a fan of multiverse stories, but I have enjoyed some. And usually, to enjoy such a thing and to avoid the pitfalls that you mentioned, you cannot sort of like punch it, like completely improvise and just plunge in head first and we go where it takes us, because it is so undefined. And if you don't make some kind of rigging for yourself, like, okay, these are the limits that we are going to set, this is how we are going to be using this multiverse and how it will be affecting our different settings. If you don't do that in advance, before you plunge in, then it can really run away from you, and you end up swamped with so many parallel universes crisscrossing, coming in, and basically disrupting your main world, because like it or not, one of the dimensions is going to be your main one. Not all of them are going to be the main ones.
Well, I think Marvel and DC both had their way of solving that by crushing all the other universes, deleting them all, and then just having
in the comic. Yes, they've done it a few times. I think DC has done it a couple times in their comics over the decades. Yeah,
Oh,
they have these big
ouch.
multiversal story events to sort of get everything manageable.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, they did run into issues, Tance, like you said, and had to deal with it.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
what happens.
Very understandable in comics where you're running for decades. Stories are coming out
Mhm.
every month for decades. You have different writers and different artists, and of course, so much time going by that things can get unwieldy.
And they're still running into issues. Still having to sort it out, as you'd
Sure.
expect.
I mean, now it's the movies. We're talking about the movies. I think they're.
Oh no,
I
they're still
suspect
still sorting out in the comics, actually. So
that'll be forever. Yeah, if you're
yeah,
gonna have ongoing characters, it'll be forever. We'll have to deal with that at some point.
yeah, but yeah, you're right. They're tackling in the movies and the TV shows. I don't think they've done it in the DC TV movies, but because they haven't been successful
Yeah.
enough to get that far.
Well, it's its own kind of mess, and a lot of them are kind of
Yeah,
separate realities. Not all, but I mean, you even like death becomes meaningless. On a dramatic level, on a writing level. Like if you can have characters pop back in from another dimension after they die, that can be great for a story, for a moment. But it's so dangerous because, again, audience investment. Like people just don't care. It just happens. Like if anything can happen, nothing.
Exactly, which is the same with overplaying your hand with magic, all that kind of stuff. But so there's a good example, say Rick and Morty. So Rick and Morty is all based on multiple universes. That's because he's got a portal gun and it can take him anywhere, usually to a different universe. And that's what they do. And they have killed, rather than killing people and replacing people, they've killed their entire world to go into a different version of their world and kill themselves and replace themselves in that world because
amazing episode.
Because their other world was wasted, so they had to get a new world for themselves. So yeah, they do that all the time. I mean, there's no logical science behind it, but that's the guy who writes Rick and Morty. I can't remember his name, but he's a real master storyteller. So he's mastered the using it as a tool. So
Yeah, if you use it as a tool, and if you can weave it into the story as part of your plot, and of course it would be, if it's in your story, it's part of your plot. Okay, but what I mean is, if the story is, if the plot is advanced by the way that the multiverse exists in it, rather than the story is basically yanked around because the multiverse is there and we don't know what to do with it. I'm not sure if I'm describing it in normal ways.
You're saying that the multiverse is an integral part of the story. It's not just something that happens to be there and it's, the story has to accommodate it.
Exactly. Then it's enjoyable. But the only thing is that usually if you took the multiverse out and you just had a what if story disjointed from anything else, it would work just as well or even better. And if that happens, then generally it's a precarious setting, in my opinion. But if taking out the multiverse, the story collapses, then you have a very organic way of incorporating it. So it works.
And there's lots of good examples where they do have it like as an intrinsic part of the story. Everything, everywhere, all at once. I'm probably getting the name wrong because it's a stupid name, but that film definitely does have the multiverse as the main skeleton that keeps everything together. And that's really, really, really cool. I mean, okay, a quick way of describing the story. You have a bunch of characters. They sort of, it's a woman working in a laundromat with her, her lesbian daughter, who's, and her husband, who she's sort of semi-estranged from, and that her father is going to come and visit the laundromat, and she's really, sort of dreading that, excited, and she wants her daughter to meet her grandfather, but she's embarrassed that, she's worried that, her father won't accept her daughter because she's lesbian and all this kind of stuff, and she wants her daughter to pretend to be a good little Korean girl. I think they're Korean. So she's got a lot of worry about that. She's also going to be audited, and that's a huge worry. So she's under a hell of a lot of stress. She's stressed. And then suddenly the whole universe gets turned upside down because this, I think it's an alternate version of her husband, comes into her world, just takes over her husband and says, okay, now do this and do that and do this. And suddenly there's this idea of different versions and different universes just gets introduced into the story and introduced to her, and her life expands from this very prosaic, kind of mundane, horrible, stressful situation to this amazing, fantastical situation, and the whole story expands and expands and expands. And as we see this multiverse, and the way the multiverse is used, is that you can get different abilities. Like suddenly you can become a master, like martial arts person, by connecting mentally with this version of you in a different universe who is a martial arts master. And you do that by, balance these 3 sausages on your hand at once, and sing a funny song. And you think, oh, why would that connect you to this person? But the reason it does is because that version of yourself in that universe happens to be at that time like picking up 5 sausages and singing a song. So that's how you can connect to that person. You're actually doing what they're doing at that same time, and suddenly you've got martial arts, and you can maybe, suddenly like do pole vaulting or something like that by connecting to this version of yourself. So it's a really unique and clever way of using multiple universes. And yeah, things start to fall apart when she finds herself not just gaining those abilities, but actually slipping into the different universe. And it expands more and more and more. And it's really cool. I heartily recommend that film. Not only
I'll watch it.
Yeah, not only because it's got multiple universes, but also because it's incredibly emotionally touching, and you get very connected to the characters. So that's a key part of it too. It's not just about fancy sci-fi or fantasy stuff. It's about actual human beings and the way they love each other, the way they accept each other. So, did you find that bad?
Yeah, you care about her, and like, is she going to lose her family? Is her marriage going to fall apart? Like, are they going to be all right?
Exactly.
It's got a through line, like, for the character, the main character and the supporting characters. Like, I mean, without it,
that's great storytelling.
You could have a good short story. What's that, Tess?
That is great storytelling. A great example.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Because even with all the fantasy stuff, they still managed to have that, to retain that connection with the audience, with those characters, and to create such a strong emotional effect. So very, very, very good, with far less of the budget that the Marvel movies have, which I think Jamie Lee Curtis very snarkily pointed out on Twitter or something, when it was still Twitter.
I think Everything Everywhere All at Once had more recognition. They won. Everyone got Oscars. The movie was huge.
I mean, and that has led to a little bit of, people come saying, oh, these Marvel films are very silly and blah blah blah. There's nothing much to them, but that's a bit unfair. The Marvel films are still amazing pieces of work, and it's incredible that they have been able to produce so many stories that are connected. How, when in history can you say that's ever happened? That there have been so many massive, big budget films that are all part of the same universe. That just never happens.
And I would say, like, just
Yeah.
like when Lord of the Rings came out, it was the first fantasy trilogy that had that level of production, and it was so consistently true to source and all of that. And it's still, I think, a one-time thing, more or less, that happened. Uh, because even the same people could not create it again after.
Yes. Lightning didn't strike twice with The Hobbit. No.
Yeah, no, it did not. So, in the same manner, the Marvel Universe films, I think they are the same thing. They are this perfect storm of awesome superhero films that all interconnect, and they create this uh, amazing multi-hour watch for you. That I don't think is easy to. I'm not saying that nobody can recreate it again, but I think that it's going to be very hard to redo something like that. And the people that keep trying just prove that.
Yes.
It's not really, and it's unfair. I mean, you should just say, "Wow, I'm glad that this happened. We had this experience. Now let's try to do something else that's awesome. Not try to recreate this."
Yes, looking at you, Star Wars and DC.
Yeah. And dark universe movies like The Mummy, I'm looking at you.
That never went anywhere. Yeah, that just flopped. Yeah, it's.
I mean, they were the original multiverse. If we're talking, if this is considered a multiverse, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, or whatever the first crossover movie was back in the 30s or 40s. You had Frankenstein, you had Dracula, you had the Wolfman, and then the first meeting. That's more like the Marvel comics or the original Marvel, where it's not a multiverse exactly, but it's like you have an Iron Man movie, or
they exist in the same
America
universe.
movie. Yeah, but they never meet. They're not really referenced in any of the movies, probably. And then in the Avengers, they bring all these characters together. There are plenty of pitfalls there, and man, they did a great job with that movie. But it's similar.
It is.
Different versions of a similar thing. Yeah, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. One of my favorites. That's kind of more of a multiverse.
Oh yes, Tance says Freddy and Jason, the two big.
Oh, Freddy and Jason, yeah, a more modern version of that, yeah.
Yeah, and they're definitely not really part of the same universe, but
nope, different movie studios, completely separate.
We've got Alien versus Predator,
right?
Like
Coke versus Pepsi. Oh, it's different.
But Alien vs Predator, like, there's nothing. They don't exist in the same universe at all. Because if that universe had experienced Predator, because Predator attacks in the 80s, then, and we like the Nostromo and all that kind of stuff, like in Alien, that happens in the I don't know, 2500 or something. I don't know what year it is, but it's a long time after that. So that would be a universe where people would already know about aliens and would already have experienced them because they've seen the alien. I mean, not the alien, the Predator. So they would have ways of dealing, they wouldn't be so surprised or so shocked. I don't know. Do you get what I mean?
It depends on if the Predator became public knowledge or whatever. I saw the first movie, but not the second. So I don't know where we were at if the larger world would have known about the Predator.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a military thing, so yeah. But anyway, there's it's tricky. So I don't know. Let's talk about maybe the science or the logic, the thought experiment of multiple universes. So one of the ideas I think that they use for the fictional version is this idea that everything that happens creates a new universe. Like every single change. And people anthropomorphize everything because that's what we do. We're humans. We think we're the most important thing in the universe. So we think that, oh, that's me, like, deciding to have a coffee. Or that's me, like, thinking I'll turn this way or brush my hair that way today. That creates a new universe. Like, the level of moronicness that results in that kind of thought process is just mind-numbing to me. But yeah, that's what people think. That's what they think creates new universes, changes. When in reality, in the world, the amount of things that can happen, humans are a very, very small, like, the tiniest little infinitesimal part of our universe are human beings. And out of all the things in the world that can happen, you know, we don't even count the randomness that can be. You know, these like bazillions and trillions of atoms, things moving around in stars, all the stars in the universe, all those kind of things. Like, so if you're talking about changes that result in different universes, you're talking about bazillions upon bazillions upon bazillions to the power of a bazillion universes that would be created every picosecond, every femtosecond. So that'd be a bazillion new universes created, and out of all those new universes, there'd be another bazillion happening every single femtosecond. It would be growing exponentially. Like, until whatever outer world that contained universes would be just, you know, bursting and just. But that's the way that people justify this idea of having, okay, so then there's like a different version of me that turns out female, or a different version of the world that has, you know, us all with goatees. Because even though it would be very unlikely for a universe for that to happen, because there's infinite stuff to play with. Infinite stuff.
Which was in just the Tan said, just the girls having goatees, which was in Sliders, by the way. The ladies had beards.
Beautiful. I want to see that world. But yeah, because we've got infinite universes to play with, then they can justify that, because if it's infinite and doesn't matter how unlikely it is, you can always grab it out of that somewhere. But you have to think, you know, even if you do have this kind of thing happening, like with every change or every random thing, every random possibility results in a new universe, the bigger the change, the more impossible it has to be until it is impossible to happen. So, like, it would be impossible for a whole new universe with you in it, with an exact version of you in it, but to be female. That would be impossible, because the change that results in, you know, the child of your parents being born with a different sex would result in a different person. That change happens too far in the past for it to result in the same person like 20 years later or 30 or 40 years later, wherever you are. So it would result in completely different person. There's no way that it could turn out to be like the female Banes, basically. or the Cartman. What was it? Cartman, female black Cartman.
Cartman is a female, or Cartman is Kathleen Kennedy.
Yes.
A very alien dimension for anyone who's seen the South Park special.
I haven't seen it. I just saw the preview, but that would be impossible because that change is too far in the past, and there's.
But unless it's an infinity, I mean, I understand. You just said how unwieldy that is and how insane that is.
Even within infinity, it would still be impossible because it's not even random chance would result in that person being the same kind of thing. Even if everything absolutely went right, it still wouldn't result in the same person because you've made too big a change in the past. So it's like, you're rolling like dice or something like that to try and end up with some sort of like, okay, so this I have to end up with a result of like a certain result, certain amount, but I initially rolled dice. But if you haven't rolled dice that will get to that number, then you're out of luck. You'll never be able to get there. You have to have it's tricky to explain, but okay, so you
get an infinity of dice rolls. I'm not making an argument, I'm just saying.
But say, okay,
you get infinite chances almost each time. It's insane to think about it.
But all right, so but the problem is it's initial conditions. So if initial conditions are different, then you're not going to get the same result, and that's because of it has to do with chaos theory, I think. But it means like you can't predict the weather. There's no way to actually exactly predict the weather. You can predict it sort of. And if you think about, okay, so if I could like actually know some kind of like if I knew all the kind of factors involved in the weather, maybe I could predict it to an exact science. I could predict exactly what temperature it's going to be tomorrow, and then I could predict exactly what temperature it's going to be like 20 years from now. Like, if you knew every single factor in the universe that had a bearing on things, maybe that would be possible. And you could, model this in a computer, but you can't do that because it's based on initial conditions. So for certain things, you can, like, predict stuff. Like you say, infinite rolls or something like that, you can. But for other things, you can't, because if the initial conditions aren't the same, the mathematics is never going to reach the same kind of conclusion. It's really hard to explain because I'm not a physicist. I'm not like a super mathematician.
Nor am I.
But that is one factor. So if you make it, so basically with the parallel universe thing, if you make a change too far in the past, then the initial conditions are so different that you cannot achieve the same result down the line. It's just too impossible. That things will diverge too far. So that's one of the problems, like if you're thinking logically about this parallel universe stuff, people make changes too large. So if you want to have a bit more hard science to your world, or a bit more logic to your world, a bit more like a clever thought experiment, then it can't work. You can only make universes. I mean, you can make universes like with anything happening in, like you say, because it's infinite. But you can't make universes where your characters are the same, but with big differences. You can only do that within a limited scope. If the scope goes too far, and this goes back to what you were saying as well, Tance, using as a crutch and going too far. Like, if you do these logical thought experiments about this, you can't do that. You can only go within a limited scope. Yeah. So it's like, okay, this is a better way of thinking about it. Okay, so we've got these exact parallel universes, universe 1, universe 2. Everything's the same. And then there's a slight change. So instead of, like Baines, you said in an email the other day, you decided to have a mustache. And that's the change. So you decide to have a mustache, and that is the change in this whole world. So 20 years later, so that change happened 20 years ago. 20 years later, other people, in your universe have like reacted. Okay, oh yeah, that mustache looks good, Baines. Yeah, you should increase the size of that mustache. You should go with that. Yeah, and then 20 years later, you've got this enormous mustache. You've got a huge long beard, plaited and everything like that. And you visit that version of yourself, and he's got this enormous beard. And that version of yourself was very influential. He influenced everybody else around him. So yeah, all the other guys. He created like a fashion movement. So in that world, a whole bunch of people have these beautiful beards with plaits over their shoulders. Even the women have got like fake mustaches and like they've had follicles. Yes, goatees. They've had follicular transplants. Like that. This is the beard world that you have created. So
what a paradise!
It's a paradise. But we've created like there's a logic for how that could have happened. So that change that happened had influenced everyone else and resulted in ladies having beards. So that can work. But say if there was a change that was so you the child of your parents that would have resulted in you was a female instead. So that is too big of a change already, because that results in a different person with different ways, because there's different hormones, because men will react to you differently. So you have a different opinion of men that you do as a person. You would have
different socialization from the get-go.
What's that?
A different socialization.
Exactly.
From the get-go.
Culturally, you'll have different influences and things like that. So it will result in a different person, not the same person, with different tastes, different ideas about color, all that kind of stuff. And if the change happens even further back, so, okay, this world never discovered oil as a means of energy. For some reason, they just didn't discover oil. Instead, they just stuck with coal. That results in so significant a change that it's not going to result in the same world that we have today, and won't result in the same people. Even if you include, the infinite factor, the changes are just too significant that things won't add up and won't work out. So, yeah.
In a sense, if you go down that path, you basically need to world build from scratch for like create different worlds, at least developed enough that they are believable. So yeah, it sounds like so much work. No, thank you. No.
Or it would have to be in a fictional setting. If you want it to make sense, it would have to have been manufactured by some kind of great intelligence, some alien intelligence, who created the evil super friends or whatever.
That's where we come to the idea of determinism. So I think this is what we have in fiction. We have this anthropomorphized idea of the universe that, okay, it's not like it's the people and the things that happen are destined to happen. Everything is destined to happen. Doesn't matter what changes you make. These meetings between people are destined to happen. It's predetermined. It's predetermined that there will always be this character, a Spiderman in every universe, no matter what.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who became the Spider-Man. There will always be a Spider-Man in this universe. There's always going to be a Baines. It doesn't matter how many beards he grows, how many denim underpants he wears. There'll always be Baines.
Always.
So yeah,
maybe there's a Baines who is made of denim and he wears human underpants. We don't know.
It's exactly with a face on his crotch, of course.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But so you're dealing with a fully anthropomorphized universe or multiverse, and it is predetermined. So that kind of world actually makes gods logical, like you said, Baines, in that like an alien who created and manufactured the world. Well, why not a god, or why not multiple gods? Because that makes sense in that world. If things are meant to happen, then shouldn't there be a creature who is aware of that, or can change that? so who has some kind of meta intelligence or meta ability. So, yeah, that's
But
the
then
kind
you
of
might,
version we have. Okay, sorry.
but then you might run into something else. If you have a being, a supernatural being, a god or gods or whatever, that create this multiverse, why did they do it? So they need to have a
Exactly.
reason, even if it's a stupid reason, like and it cannot be too stupid because we're talking gods and stuff. So there has to be like, oh, okay, this is my sandbox world where I test run all my humans or whatever, and this is my and or this is where we have our different competition. You know, it has to make some kind of sense. Why wouldn't the gods have like this one single world where they do their thing?
Well, we do have a logic. We do have fictional versions of that, of course, in something like The Matrix, where the world it
Mm,
basically is another universe, but it is virtual, and
yeah.
things are like that because the gods, these
Yeah.
AIs, have
Mhm.
created it to be that way. And there's different versions. Like the 13th Floor is another movie version of
Mm,
that where there's multiple levels to this, and it takes it even further. So these people are living in a simulation, and this guy visits the simulation, but he works out that he actually comes from a simulation. There's
yeah.
there's simulations all the way down. That's really clever. I like that one.
What's
It
that from the
extends.
13th floor, the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Never seen it. I didn't know that's what it was about.
Oh, shit. I mean,
Yeah,
it's one of uh,
intrigued.
yeah. I will not go into it because that's one of the few movies that I think that you shouldn't really be spoiled beyond the basic premise. So go ahead and watch it.
Okay. That's a movie like
People
from the late 90s, right?
they it
Section Hall or
funnily
whatever.
enough, people make a big freaking deal about The Matrix, which is a great fun action film. I love The Matrix. I saw it again recently and it holds up. It's better.
Yeah.
But The Matrix came out at the same time as The 13th Floor and Existenz and maybe others, but all three of those films all tackle these multiple universes simulation stuff in the same but different ways. And they're all just as good in their own way.
Yeah. There was this, there is this entire, I want to say, section of scientists or philosophers or, what have you. And even they are cross discipline. So these, like, there was, at least then, it was pretty fancy at the time, this whole paradigm of what is real and what isn't. Um, so we perceive the world through our mind. So what we perceive through our mind is not necessarily true. And the whole question was, what is real? Like, how can you tell that something is real? Like, your senses are not real senses; they are what your mind interprets.
Hmm.
And you can fool your mind. There are ways to fool perception. Um, so there is this entire school of thought that basically we are in a matrix anyway, and that nothing is real or everything is real, and all of that. I don't like it. I hate it because I
Yeah.
think it is an exercise in futility. But there are many people that are fascinated by it. And I think that these movies were inspired by that because that was during that time there was this peak of what is real, what isn't, what's perception, how um, how do we perceive the world, what can we determine is actually concretely real, or can we even do that at all, and all of that. So
Mm. It's interesting. Okay, so to sort of outline your idea of not your idea, but what you said about the way our brain interprets things, a good version, a good illustration of that is that Mandela effect we were talking about earlier. You know, people make a mistake and they think it's basically they think the universe is wrong, not themselves, because it's the way you perceive it. And it's like with me, I'm wearing glasses these days, but before I was wearing glasses, I was thinking, why the hell is the text on my TV always so freaking blurry? Can't they get that? I mean, that's terrible quality TV. Why is the text on my TV blurry and hard to read? Why is the microwave clock always jumping around? Like, what? Is there steam escaping from it? What is wrong with it? So it's the universe problem, not me. So I wear glasses and suddenly the world is clear. Suddenly the text on the TV is clear. Oh, the universe has changed. I've slipped into a new reality where I don't have text on the TV anymore. But we go by our plain old senses and our interpretation of our senses, you know, and we think that, yeah, that's how things are. But it's not. That's just our interpretation from our limited, you know, sensory input and imperfect sensory input. And that's how things, you know, work. Which is cool to think about. You know, our version of reality, it might not be, well, I mean, it is because that's how we perceive it to be, but it might not be the way another person perceives it. And like your cat won't perceive reality in the same way that you do. And certainly a dog doesn't. They hear differently, they smell differently, they feel differently, things like that. So it's fascinating. Yeah. Cockroach perceives reality totally differently from the way we do. Funnily enough, this is an aside. I saw a cockroach and a slug the other night, and the cockroach was like canoodling with the slug's horns. It was the weirdest thing ever. Yeah, it was like, I don't know.
That's a fan fiction I don't want to read.
No.
It was the weirdest thing. It wasn't even like eating it or something like that. There was just a live slug and a live cockroach, and they were together. It's the strangest thing. Oh dear. I had to come up somewhere. But yeah, our senses give us a certain version of the world that might not be real, and like Tance says, it's very easy to fool them by, especially knowing the way senses perceive the world and manipulating that. And we do this all the time. Our technology does this. This is how phones work. This is how TVs work. TVs aren't showing us actual people moving around. They're a bunch of tiny little lights showing different colors. So it's red, green, and blue, I think. And they're just organized in different orders. And we're fooled into thinking that those are actual pictures of humans that are moving. And there's no way to actually show moving pictures of people because pictures don't move. Pictures are singular. So we record different instances of a person moving, and by replacing those images fast enough fools us that they're moving. So then again, there's another manipulation of the way we see. That's the way film works.
It fools us because we take advantage of a very specific quality that our vision has, that we see things at a latency of like a nano, I don't know, a fraction of a second, whatever that is. So because we have that, by the time we see the second picture, we still have the image of the previous one on our retinas. So that's why it is like it is moving, because we sort of recreate what we see in nature by just interchanging the images really quickly and not giving our eyes a chance to break up the images. So
to see them as distinct, separate images. And we do this like with audio technology as well. This is in a different way. Like I'm not actually listening to Tance, and you're not actually listening to me speaking at the moment. You're listening to a digital representation, obviously, but like this is produced by I don't know. I don't know the physics. I don't know the science behind the way sounds are produced in like speakers and stuff like that. But speakers vibrate in a certain way, and it produces a sound. But it's not actually recording my voice. It's a way of like it's imitating. It's too hard to explain. But yeah, like when I talk now, my voice is produced by my lungs, my vocal cords, my tongue, my teeth, my cheeks, all this kind of stuff, and that's going out into the world. But my microphone is not recording that. It's recording certain aspects of the vibrations of particles as it hits the microphone, and so that's what you're getting. Like you're getting a recording of the vibrations of those particles that are in the vicinity of the microphone, and then that's what it gets digitally encoded and compressed, and then replayed to you as you listen to it. But it's not really replayed. It's just it's very complicated. But of course, this is all like manipulating our senses, and it's
we recreate the stimuli that we are going to produce what we are producing right now. So that's what is basically happening. And the other fascinating thing, since you talked about perception and how we are wired to, for example, look for faces.
Oh, Bain said that, not me.
Yes, Baines. Sorry. Absolutely, Baines.
I was just about to hang up. I'm glad you.
Sorry, Baines. So there was a very relatively recent study, which is amazing. They recorded the perception of fetuses in the womb that have developed sight. And the amazing thing was that when they shone specific lights against the belly, so that they create like a projection of, it's like a light show, okay, on a taut sheet of sorts. So when they projected lights like an inverted triangle, which is the most rudimentary arrangement of a face, the fetuses are all aligned and stared at it. When they projected any other kind of pattern, a triangle the right side up, for example, or a circle, or what have you, they didn't care. And that was amazing. Like we are hardwired, super hardwired to pick out faces. and yeah. It's amazing.
They really are. And we have to wonder that isn't just a human thing at all. That is
no, it happens for all beings. So or at least all vertebrates, sorry. Yeah.
Which means this factor probably happened a long way back in our evolutionary process to some proto-species, and then that change obviously spread through all of the later
and I'll also tell you another thing that we learned in developmental, a very still a famous experiment as well. I think it took place like either in late 70s, early 80s, somewhere around there. So they had babies that were younger than 6 months, or 6 months, super, like a lot younger than a year old. And they showed them certain tricks that seemed to defy basic rules of physics. For example, defy gravity, or something burns that shouldn't, or something drops upwards, or things like this. Or they showed them the normal thing. Something drops the normal way, like downwards, all of that. Super basic physics and science. And the babies were all bizarrely like amazed, like, oh, what is happening, like that sort of expression, only when the laws of physics and or the world were broken, quote unquote.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
we
So they're
come
hardwired to see things
exactly.
happening normally.
Mm-hmm.
Hardwired to
Amazing, isn't it?
know that gravity works and to
Mm-hmm.
know that, yeah, it's interesting. Well, okay, related to that, ancient discoveries, of like prehistory, where we know that our non-human ancestors used tools and built dwellings and wore clothes. So we were able to finally work that out, to a pretty good probability that they most likely did make tools, and they most likely did wear clothes, and they most likely did build structures. Which means the old idea that, oh yeah, caveman just suddenly decided to, grab a tool and that made him superior to the other caveman, or to, to wear clothes or whatever, or to live in a house instead of to live in a cave is wrong. This isn't something that was that humans decided to do. This is something that started before humans, because we were, pre-human, which means that our use of technology evolved with us. So the old idea that, these hands are, why did we develop hands? Oh, probably just for swinging on trees. And we developed this probably just for doing, we don't have hair. Oh, it's probably like, other animals have hair all over their bodies. So that sort of pushed back that idea of evolution, that because technology developed with us, that means we are evolved to use technology rather than just because we're so good at, holding on the trees or whatever, or we don't have hair, so we decided to wear clothes to compensate for that. That is wrong, which is very interesting. Which means, and that sort of plays into the idea that, you're saying that our recognition of like faces is hardwired, our recognition of gravity and things like that are hardwired. So, and because of the way we evolved, our usage of our current technology in that, say, clothes and building houses and all this kind of stuff is also pretty much hardwired into us. We are not the same as an ape. We are not the same as a cat or a dog or something like that, because they have not evolved to have those things as part of their needs. So I think we've sorry, like I've taken us away from our parallel universes thing, but it's an
all of that
interesting
is fascinating, isn't it?
side. It is. It is incredibly fascinating. Incredibly fascinating. Yeah. All right, so we'll have to wrap it up now, I suppose. Before we do, what are your favorite like parallel universe fiction things? It can be anything, like from the Matrix to 13th Floor to everything.
Well, my the favorites that come to mind are not technically multiverses, but more like altered timelines. I love the idea of an altered timeline that goes bad and we have to correct it. There's an episode of Star Trek that Next Generation, Yesterday's Enterprise. A lot of Trekkies will know it, of course. Where something in the past happens, a ship comes out of a hole in space, and suddenly the Enterprise crew turns into this. They're different. They're the same people, but a different environment. It's a different condition. We're at war, and it's a darker reality. And they realize that because this ship came through time from 20 years ago, it changed everything. But so if we send the ship back, it should correct everything. But the ship probably will be destroyed and the crew will die. So it's like that kind of thing. And this ties into Ozone Ocean's notion that if things changed 20 or 25 years ago that much, it's highly unlikely that the same crew would be on board the Enterprise serving. But in fiction you do what you gotta do. But that's an amazing episode. And I love Back to the Future too. My favorite part being the altered alternate dark 1985.
Oh yes, that's freaking awesome. Yeah, with all the changes that have happened in that. I think one of my favorite versions is the Community episode where they're playing a game and they roll a dice, and for each roll of the dice, someone else goes down. Okay, so they're playing a game. They roll the dice, and the dice lands on a 2, and then one of the characters decides. Pizza arrives, and one of the characters says, "Okay, I'll go down and get the pizza." And all kinds of things happen because of that person went down to get the pizza. And then suddenly we reset. Someone else rolls. We go back to the same point where someone rolled the dice. Someone else rolls. Well, they roll it. It lands on a different number, 3. Someone else goes down to get the pizza, and a whole bunch of different things happen because of that. And those all create different universes, and in the end we have an extreme bad version of what would happen with the universes, like extremely bad.
I love that.
That spawns a whole parallel evil universe that continues through the rest of the seasons. And those bad people come across to the Prime universe. It's very good. It's genius. So yeah, Chance, you said yours, didn't you? So, or did you?
I'm trying to think if I have one that is a favorite, but I really can't come up with anything.
Also, Loki. That's one of my favorites now.
Right, I've heard some good things. Yeah. I don't have Disney Plus anymore, but I've heard good things.
So good.
I really am racking my brains. No. Sorry.
I will give again a shout out to Sliders, which we've mentioned today, and other times we've mentioned.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Hey?
I'll go with that. That is my favorite.
Oh, you actually saw Sliders, Tom?
Not Sliders. I heard Spiders. Then I thought it was
Spiders.
a Spider-Verse.
The Spider-Verse. Yes. Sliders, Spiders.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah.
Excellent.
I enjoyed the butterfly effect. That movie doesn't 100% hold up, I don't think, in the 90s. But neat.
I didn't really like it. Not because it wasn't. It was well conceived. I really liked the whole concept of it, but I didn't like the resolution.
Right. Which multiverse ending did you see?
The Never Been Born one.
Okay, yeah. There's a theatrical ending that's a little happier.
Oh. Good.
Another version. Oh, my God, that I love. Run, Lola, Run.
Oh yeah, you've mentioned before, yeah.
That's so cool. And you wouldn't normally think that this is multiple universes, but it really is, because incredibly different things happen depending on how she runs down the stairs to get, to try and get this money to her boyfriend.
Yeah, dude. I still have to see that movie. I'm curious to see it. I did see Sliding Doors, which I guess is a takeoff on Run Lola Run.
I loved Run, Lola, run. I'm gonna go with that. I love that one.
I gotta see this.
So
How
good.
could I forget it? Okay, yeah. I'm
Great
going with you.
soundtrack too. Yeah, Sliding Doors is sort of a similar thing in a very different way. Very
Yeah.
different. Sliding Doors is great in its own way.
Mm.
It's not doing the same thing.
Alright. Neat.
The American version of Run Lola Run was And Then Came Lola, and I think that was probably not so good. I haven't seen it, but yeah.
Mm.
Well, that's it. That's your lot for
Yay!
this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I really loved this subject. It was fantastic. I love getting into the science and not necessarily science, but thought experiments. I freaking love it. So yeah, this has been one of my favorite Quackcasts. All right, see ya. Bye bye.
See you.
Bye bye.